The Polish brand Garbaruk might not be a household name yet, but it's one that I think a lot of people will be interested in hearing about. They're a fairly rare mix of good price, good quality, and amazing aesthetics. But for this video, I'm focusing on the problem that they solve for Shimano GRX 1x drivetrain, giving you the ability to run far better ratios than the Shimano standard. My main criticism of the Shimano GRX 1x was the narrow gear range. The 40-tooth chainring at the front and the 11-42 cassette at the back is the maximum of what Shimano recommends using. I have heard you can fit a 46, but Shimano don't want you to do that. So I'll acknowledge that it is apparently possible, but that I haven't really tried it. With the Garbaruk 46-tooth chainring and the 11-50, I've basically matched the SRAM Force wide setup that is a 2x12. Just a quick interruption of myself here. I did factor in the 650B wheels on this bike versus the 700C wheels on the bike that has the SRAM Force wide. And it doesn't quite match up exactly. There's a little bit of complication going on because of the wheel size conversion affecting the rollout. But yeah, it's sort of similar. Not quite the same, but similar. Because that gear range is just excellent and I love it. I've been riding on it for more than a year and it just lets me do basically everything I wanted to. Just before I dive further in, I do want to acknowledge that this is a review group set from Garbaruk through the bike shop that I deal with, BMCR, who is a Garbaruk dealer. So I'll link to them in the description below. If you're in Australia and you want to buy this stuff, that is somewhere where you can go. It is a fully independent review as always, and my opinions are never for sale. So let's jump in and talk about what this Garbaruk stuff does for the Shimano experience. I spec'd out my drivetrain with the 11-50 cassette and the 46-tooth chainring. The chainring bolts on easily and very cleanly to the standard Shimano GRX crank arms, but the cassette does need the longer cage from Garbaruk to work. It's a fairly simple change to make, just straight replacing the old cage. The fancy looking pulley wheels are not at all necessary, but damn they look cool and aren't too expensive, so why not, I guess. All of these Garbaruk parts all fit easily with no adapting or weird free hub tricks. It's all just designed to go well with Shimano seamlessly. Out on the bike, that 46-tooth chainring and the 11-50 cassette gives you a very widely usable range of gears. It'll keep up with a 55 to 60 km/h descent, no worries, you can still pedal through that, and way at the other end, your 20+% gross slushy rough gravel climbing. Of course, you do have big steps within that range, but I've always found with off-road bikes, whether it's gravel or mountain bikes, that doesn't really bother me. I have run SRAM GX Eagle a few years ago as an example. Like on road, yes, big ranges between gears is pretty annoying, but off-road, doesn't really seem to bother me. There is a compromise to shift quality because of that big range of gears. We actually had to add some links to a standard Shimano chain to get it to cover everything on this drivetrain, so it's pretty extreme. And naturally that does mean that the shifting feels just a little bit slower. We also had to do some fine adjusting to get everything working nicely. It's still Shimano GRX shifting, which is outstanding. It's just probably 90% as good. Shimano stuff is all optimized to work really well together. So once you step out of that ecosystem, you are gonna find that it's just a little bit compromised. But I think that's more than reasonable considering the added range that you're getting from it. Swapping standard Shimano GRX for Garbaruk exactly as I have done in this build will cost a decent premium. Shimano did an excellent job of keeping GRX very cheap because so many of the parts used in it were pre-existing in their ecosystem. So buying from an Australian shop will set you back $379 for the cassette, $99 to around $195 depending on what chainring you choose, $99 for the cage, and $95 for the pulley wheels. These can vary, but that is a sort of good price guide for how much it'll cost you. It is worth noting that Garbaruk uses very high-end manufacturing techniques. These cassettes are milled from a single piece of steel with nickel coating for longevity reasons, and the largest cog is machined out of 7075 T6 aluminium alloy. And that manufacturing technique does actually align with the really high end of Shimano and SRAM 12-speed cassettes. So once you sort of compare that end of Garbaruk to that end of Shimano and SRAM, Garbaruk compares extremely well. They are typically both lighter and cheaper than the Shimano and SRAM alternatives. When you are talking GRX though, it doesn't quite line up as well because the GRX is sort of more mid-range than it is top range. So with the Garbaruk, you are spending more than the Shimano GRX parts. Of course, you can soften that up a little bit by making sure that the things you're replacing are worn out. So if your cassette, chain, and chainring need replacing, then it's sort of a much more economical and environmentally conscious way to change those things over. Now, just some advice on the anodization, because my bike has gotten a ton of attention because of how bloody good that it looks. Firstly, it doesn't cost any extra. Whether you get it all black or all purple, it's all the same price. Secondly, if you are going to order anodized stuff and multiple parts at the same time, do it together so they all get anodized within the same batch, because that will ensure that there is a color consistency to all the components. Finally, because of what anodization does, you will see a little bit of wear on those colored parts where they touch the chain. So a little bit on the pulley wheels and a little bit on the chain ring. Anodization adds just a fraction of a millimeter on top of the metal, and yeah, it just comes off. They still look good after about 1,000 Ks of use from me in some really gross winter riding, but they just won't look showroom new forever, so keep that in mind. Wrapping up, there is a lot to like about Garbaruk's offering. They genuinely have filled a gap left by Shimano's tight gear range for the 1x-GRX. Upgrading certainly isn't cheap when you compare Shimano GRX against Garbaruk, but it just does so much for the gear range and it really widens the utility. So if you are finding that the GRX is a little bit limited, then this really is a good option to open it up. Personally, I love a wide range of gears because I do a wide range of riding. Ultimately, if you're happy with the Shimano GRX 1x range, then you don't need to bother with Garbaruk. You can just, keep on going. But if you're like me and you found the gear range limiting, then this is a really good way to just sort of give yourself that extra range and extra utility. You can also keep it much more simple than I have. If you just go for the extended derailleur cage and the cassette, don't worry about the pulley wheels, don't worry about the chainring, then it is a much cheaper way to broaden that out. You're still gonna get that really big gear range, but just for less money. And really, that's all there is to it. I'm gonna leave it there. Thank you so much for watching as always. Don't forget to watch all of the other nerdy stuff I have on the channel. And don't forget to ride safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you next time.